Battle of Britain wasn't just another war movie, it was an obsessive attempt to resurrect 1940 in the skies above Europe, plane by plane, explosion by explosion. This is 20 weird facts about Battle of Britain that reveal the extraordinary lengths filmmakers went to honor history and the disasters that nearly grounded everything. The bonus fact: it involves a bizarre connection between this film and modern aviation that nobody saw coming. Let's take off. Fact number 1, the production assembled the largest private air force since World War II. Battle of Britain didn't use miniatures or clever camera tricks for its centerpiece aerial combat. Producer Harry Saltzman and director Guy Hamilton assembled 109 aircraft, the largest collection of flyable warplanes gathered since 1945. This wasn't CGI trickery decades before digital effects. These were genuine Spitfires, Hurricanes, Messerschmitts, and Heinkels pulled from museums, private collections, and military boneyards across Europe. Each required restoration. Mechanics worked 18-hour shifts rebuilding engines that hadn't fired in 25 years. The production spent over $2 million just acquiring and restoring aircraft before filming even started. Insurance companies initially refused coverage, claiming the risk was astronomical. What audiences see isn't Hollywood magic, it's actual vintage warbirds fighting mock battles over Spain, England, and France, flown by some of the world's most skilled stunt pilots risking their lives daily. Fact number 2, real Battle of Britain. Veterans refused to participate. Several actual RAF pilots who fought in 1940 turned down roles as technical advisors. Their reasoning? The script didn't match their memories. Group Captain Tom Gleave, badly burned during the real battle, rejected involvement after reading early drafts. He claimed the screenplay romanticized events his friends died in. Wing Commander Robert Stanford Tuck, a decorated ace with 29 victories, walked away from consultations, frustrated by what he called Hollywood's need for neat narratives. The filmmakers wanted clear heroes and villains. Veterans remembered confusion, terror, and 19-year-olds burning alive in cockpits. This creative tension meant the production relied heavily on younger advisors and historians rather than first-hand witnesses. The disconnect between cinematic storytelling and traumatic memory created an uncomfortable gap that some veterans never forgave. Their absence haunts the film's authenticity claims. Fact number 3, they painted modern jets to look like German bombers. The production couldn't find enough German aircraft. Most Luftwaffe planes were destroyed after the war or scrapped for metal. The solution was audacious disguise: Spanish Air Force Casa 2.111 bombers as Heinkel He-111s. These were actually license-built versions of the original German design, still operational in Spain decades later. Art directors attached fake gun turrets, repainted markings, and modified nose cones. From certain angles, the deception worked perfectly, but close-ups revealed modern instruments and updated systems. The Spanish government provided 25 aircraft and pilots under strict conditions: no crashes, no actual damage. Every flight required government approval. What looks like authentic Luftwaffe formations bombing London represents an elaborate international masquerade involving post-war Spanish military cooperation, creative paint jobs, and camera angles, carefully chosen to hide anachronistic details that would shatter the period illusion. Fact number 4, Laurence Olivier was nursing a dying wife during production. Laurence Olivier plays Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding with quiet dignity, but behind the cameras, tragedy consumed him. His wife, actress Vivien Leigh, was dying from tuberculosis combined with severe mental illness during filming. Olivier flew between locations and her bedside in London, exhausted and emotionally shattered. His performance carries genuine weight. The fatigue in Dowding's eyes wasn't acting, it was real grief. Co-stars noticed Olivier's distraction, his 1,000-yard stare between takes. Director Guy Hamilton gave him space, cutting scenes to minimize his time on set. Leigh died in July 1967 during post-production. Watching Olivier's performance, knowing this context transforms every scene. His portrayal of a commander carrying impossible weight while sending young men to die wasn't method acting. It was a man channeling genuine anguish into professional duty, finding temporary refuge in someone else's historical burden. Fact number 5, the climactic air battle took 4 months to film. The massive aerial sequence showcasing hundreds of planes wasn't shot in days or weeks. It consumed 4 months of continuous filming across multiple countries. Weather became the enemy. Clouds ruined perfect formations. Wind grounded aircraft for weeks. Pilots flew the same maneuvers repeatedly, burning thousands of gallons of fuel. The aerial unit operated independently from the main crew, with its own director, cameras, and schedule. They shot over 30 hours of footage for sequences lasting minutes on screen. Coordination nightmares erupted constantly. Radios failed. Planes broke down mid-formation. And several near collisions almost killed performers. The production built a mobile air traffic control system just to manage daily flights. Each sortie required meteorologists, safety officers, backup pilots, and emergency crews standing by. What appears as seamless aerial ballet represents months of grinding repetition, mechanical failures, and nerve-shredding coordination that nearly bankrupted the production. Fact number 6. Christopher Plummer replaced another actor 3 weeks into shooting the role of squadron leader. Colin Harvey originally belonged to someone else entirely. That actor, whose identity remains disputed among film historians, was fired after 3 weeks for reasons never officially disclosed. Christopher Plummer received an emergency call while performing on stage in New York. The production needed him immediately in England. Plummer flew overnight, stepped onto set without rehearsal, and started filming scenes with actors he'd never met. He learned dialogue during makeup. Every previous scene featuring Harvey required reshooting, adding massive costs. Plummer later admitted he never fully understood why the original actor departed or what production crisis necessitated his sudden involvement. The compressed preparation shows occasionally Plummer seems slightly disconnected from ensemble dynamics, but his professionalism salvaged what could have been a production-ending disaster, even if it meant entering a complex production midstream without proper integration time. Fact number 7. They used real explosives that injured multiple crew members. Practical effects meant actual danger. The production employed former military demolition experts who rigged genuine explosives for ground battle sequences. During one airfield attack scene, a pyrotechnic charge detonated prematurely, sending shrapnel into 3 crew members. 2 required hospitalization. Another explosion sequence set a period hangar genuinely ablaze. Firefighters took 40 minutes to control flames while cameras kept rolling, capturing authentic destruction. Stunt coordinator Bob Simmons insisted on real concussive blasts rather than Hollywood flash powder. The resulting footage carries genuine violence debris, flies with real physics, smoke, billows authentically thick and black, but the human cost mounted. 14 crew members suffered blast-related injuries throughout production. Modern safety protocols would have shut down this production immediately. Instead, medics treated burns and lacerations on site while filming continued. The visceral impact of attack sequences isn't special effects wizardry. It's actual high explosives detonating feet from cameras and human beings. Fact number 8. Michael Caine nearly died when his Spitfire caught fire. Michael Caine plays Squadron Leader Canfield, and his close-up cockpit scenes weren't all filmed safely on the ground. For several shots, Caine actually flew in genuine Spitfires piloted by stunt flyers. During one flight, hydraulic fluid leaked onto the hot engine manifold and ignited. Smoke filled the cockpit. Caine, strapped in the rear position, couldn't reach controls or escape. The pilot executed an emergency landing in a Spanish field while Caine breathed through his jacket, terrified and unable to communicate over malfunctioning radio systems. They landed hard, damaging the landing gear. Caine emerged shaking, vowing never to enter another warbird. The production kept this incident quiet. Insurance implications could have grounded all actor flights. Caine later described those minutes as genuinely believing he'd die in a 70-year-old plane recreating someone else's war. His remaining scenes were filmed in stationary cockpit mock-ups with projected backgrounds. Fact 9. The film's budget exploded from $7 million to $12 million. Initial projections estimated $7 million, massive for 1968 but manageable. Reality proved different. Aircraft restoration doubled projected costs, weather delays added months of crew salaries. The international production required coordinating British, Spanish, and French logistics simultaneously. Insurance costs alone reached nearly $1 million. United Artists executives panicked as budget reports arrived weekly with escalating numbers. Producer Harry Saltzman, fresh from James Bond's successes, promised the overruns would deliver unprecedented spectacle. But tensions erupted. Studio representatives arrived on set demanding cuts. Saltzman refused, arguing you can't recreate history cheaply. The final $12 million cost made Battle of Britain one of the most expensive films of its era. Box office returns barely broke even initially, causing United Artists significant anxiety. The financial pressure created constant friction between artistic vision and corporate panic, nearly shutting down production multiple times when money ran out between funding rounds. Fact number 10, the Germans are portrayed more sympathetically than expected. Director Guy Hamilton insisted German characters receive nuanced treatment. Luftwaffe pilots appear professional, disciplined, and conflicted, not monsters. Several scenes show German airmen reluctantly following orders, expressing doubt about targeting civilians. This approach infuriated some British veterans who wanted clear villainy. But Hamilton argued the real battle's tragedy came from decent people trapped in historical forces beyond their control. The script includes moments of German pilots showing mercy, sparing damaged British planes, even expressing admiration for RAF courage. This wasn't Hollywood whitewashing. Historical records document instances of chivalry between adversaries. The balanced portrayal makes the conflict more devastating, not less. War becomes a machine grinding up humans regardless of nationality, rather than simplistic good versus evil. That complexity makes Battle of Britain unusual among 1960s war films that typically embraced patriotic certainty. Go ahead and like and subscribe, because what comes next reveals how this film broke war movie conventions in ways audiences didn't initially appreciate. Fact number 11. Actual combat footage was considered but rejected. Producers debated incorporating genuine Battle of Britain newsreel footage to enhance authenticity. Archives contained hundreds of hours shot during 1940 by British, German, and neutral cameramen, but test screenings proved disastrous. The quality gap between grainy black and white wartime footage and crisp Technicolor production photography jarred audiences completely out of the narrative. Worse, real combat looked less dramatic than staged sequences. Actual dogfights occurred at distances making aircraft barely visible. Real bombs created disappointing visual impacts compared to controlled explosions. The messy, confused reality of aerial combat didn't translate cinematically. So the production committed entirely to staged recreation, accepting the irony that manufactured spectacle would communicate historical truth more effectively than actual documentation. This decision highlights cinema's fundamental tension. Sometimes fabricated imagery conveys experiential reality better than documentary evidence. The rejection of genuine footage meant doubling down on expensive practical effects and elaborate choreography to capture emotional truth that facts alone couldn't deliver. Fact number 12. The Spanish government used the film as a military exercise. Spain's cooperation came with benefits beyond rental fees. The Spanish Air Force treated the production as a live training operation. Pilots logged official flight hours during filming. Ground crews practiced rapid deployment and maintenance under realistic conditions. Military strategists studied the coordination requirements of managing large aircraft formations. The production became an unofficial NATO exercise with observers from multiple countries analyzing logistics. Spain's authoritarian government under Franco saw propaganda value showcasing their air force's capabilities to international audiences while generating revenue. This mutually beneficial arrangement meant the production accessed resources typically reserved for actual military operations. Spanish fighter jets flew escort during some sequences. Military bases provided support infrastructure. What appears on screen as a film production was simultaneously a genuine military operation with real strategic planning and official Air Force involvement that blurred lines between entertainment and defense cooperation. Fact number 13. Susanna York was the only major female character. Battle of Britain features one significant female role, WAF Section Officer Maggie Harvey, played by Susanna York. This wasn't oversight, but historical accuracy. The actual 1940 battle was overwhelmingly male, with women serving primarily in support roles. York lobbied for her character to have more depth than typical war movie girlfriends. She researched women's auxiliary Air Force members, incorporating their experiences, the stress of sending men into combat, the forced cheerfulness, masking constant grief, the professional competence often overlooked by male colleagues. Her scenes provide emotional grounding that prevents the film from becoming pure spectacle. York brings quiet strength to moments that could have been throwaway romance. She insisted on wearing authentic WAF uniforms rather than glamorized versions and refused makeup that would have made her look artificially perfect during crisis sequences. Her commitment to portraying wartime women accurately gives the film's gender dynamics more texture than typical 1960s war cinema, even within limited screen time. Fact number 14. Weather-grounded production for 47 days. The production schedule allocated flexibility for weather, but nobody anticipated losing 47 complete filming days to conditions. Clouds ruined aerial photography. Audiences wouldn't believe the Battle of Britain happened in overcast dreariness, though historically it often did. Wind exceeded safety limits for vintage aircraft repeatedly. Rain damaged period costumes and outdoor sets. The production became hostage to meteorology across 3 countries. Crews stood ready while forecasters analyzed conditions hourly. Actors remained in costume all day, only to be dismissed without shooting a single frame. The financial hemorrhaging was devastating. Hundreds of people on salary doing nothing while waiting for sunshine. Insurance covered some weather delays, but not all. By week 6 of weather-related shutdowns, executives seriously discussed abandoning the project entirely. Only Saltzman's conviction and contractual obligations kept things alive. The accumulated delays pushed post-production dangerously close to the scheduled release date, creating editing nightmares that compromised the final cut's coherence. Fact number 15. The massive control room set was actually functional. The underground operations room, where Dowding and staff track battles, wasn't just a set, it was a working tactical display system. Production designers consulted with the actual RAF fighter command to recreate the plotting table and communication systems with functional accuracy. Crew members operated radio systems, moved aircraft markers, and communicated through period-appropriate equipment during filming. This wasn't necessary for the cameras, but Director Hamilton insisted on operational authenticity to help actors inhabit the tension of real-time combat coordination. The ambient noise, radio chatter, telephone bells, plotting officers calling updates was genuine, not added in post-production. Actors responded to actual information flow rather than pretending. The set cost nearly twice the budgeted amount because everything had to genuinely work. RAF advisors trained extras on proper procedures, communication protocols, and military bearing. What results is a tangible sense of functional reality. The control room feels like a working nerve center because it essentially was one during filming. Fact number 16. Several pilots were former Luftwaffe airmen. Among the stunt pilots flying German aircraft were men who had actually served in the Luftwaffe during the war. This casting decision created uncomfortable tensions on set. British crew members who'd lost family to German bombing campaigns now worked alongside former enemies. The pilots themselves felt conflicted. Some had bombed England decades earlier, now staging those attacks for entertainment. One German pilot reportedly broke down after filming a London bombing sequence, overwhelmed by memories. Language barriers and cultural differences created isolation. British pilots initially refused to socialize with German counterparts until production coordinators forced integration. Over months, tentative friendships emerged built on mutual respect for flying skills and shared acknowledgement of war's tragedy. The production became an accidental reconciliation project, with former adversaries cooperating to document the conflict that once separated them. This human element never appears on screen, but profoundly affected the production's emotional atmosphere and the authenticity of aerial sequences. Fact number 17. The score was composed and then almost entirely replaced. William Walton, Britain's preeminent classical composer, created the original score. His martial, traditional composition matched what producers expected, but during post-production, someone suggested Ron Goodwin, known for smaller-scale work, might better serve the material. Goodwin's approach emphasized melancholy over triumph, brass fades to strings, victory themes carry undertones of loss. Studio executives initially rejected this as too downbeat for a war picture. They wanted soaring heroism. Goodwin argued the Battle of Britain wasn't triumphant, it was survival purchased with tremendous sacrifice. His score reflects exhaustion more than exhilaration. After test screenings, audiences responded more emotionally to Goodwin's approach than Walton's grandeur. The decision to mostly replace Walton's work created controversy in British music circles. Walton felt betrayed, but Goodwin's score became iconic, particularly the main theme later adopted by the RAF. The music elevates the film from spectacle to elegy, transforming aerial combat into something closer to requiem than adventure. Fact number 18. The film premiered 29 years after the actual battle. Battle of Britain premiered in September 1969, precisely 29 years after the events it depicts. This timing was deliberate, close enough that many veterans could attend, but distant enough for perspective. The premiere became a major event, with Queen Elizabeth and surviving RAF commanders present. For veterans watching, the experience proved overwhelming. Several left theaters in tears, unable to reconcile Hollywood's clean heroism with their memories of terror and chaos. Others appreciated the effort to preserve history before their generation disappeared entirely. The premiere highlighted tension between commemoration and entertainment. Was this a respectful memorial or commercial exploitation? Critics debated whether any film could authentically capture such trauma. The generational divide was stark. Younger audiences saw adventure and spectacle, while older viewers experienced painful resurrection of buried memories. The premiere's emotional intensity revealed how differently people process the same historical recreation, depending on their Rauner relationship to the actual events being depicted. Fact number 19. 3 aircraft were destroyed during production. Despite extraordinary safety measures, 3 aircraft were lost permanently during filming. One Spitfire crashed during a landing approach when the pilot misjudged altitude in haze. He survived with severe injuries, but the plane was obliterated. A Messerschmitt replica suffered engine failure and crashed into a Spanish field, fortunately empty. The third loss came when a Hurricane undergoing maintenance caught fire mechanics escaped, but the plane burned to its frame before firefighters arrived. Each loss was investigated, with production briefly suspended while safety protocols were reviewed. Insurance investigators descended, questioning whether the entire aerial operation was fundamentally unsafe. The crashes devastated crews who'd spent months restoring these historic machines. Aviation historians mourned the loss of irreplaceable artifacts. The production absorbed the financial hit, over $500,000 in destroyed aircraft and damage claims. These weren't props or reproductions in all cases. These were actual survivors of the original conflict, destroyed while recreating the very battles they'd once fought for real. Fact number 20. Box office disappointment. Almost killed the war movie genre. Battle of Britain earned respectable numbers, but fell short of the massive returns its $12 million budget required to be profitable. This financial underperformance sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Studios interpreted it as evidence audiences had tired of expensive war epics. Production companies canceled multiple planned projects. Films about Dunkirk, Stalingrad, and other battles were shelved. The genre essentially died for nearly 15 years with few exceptions. Producers concluded modern audiences preferred contemporary stories or science fiction over historical warfare. Battle of Britain became a cautionary tale about budget bloat and misreading audience appetite. Only in the mid-1980s did Platoon and other Vietnam films revive war cinema, and even then with smaller budgets and different approaches. The film's commercial disappointment influenced what stories studios were willing to tell for over a decade. An entire generation of war films never got made because Battle of Britain failed to meet profit expectations, regardless of its technical achievements or historical value. Bonus fact: the film's aircraft still fly at modern air shows. Several aircraft restored for Battle of Britain remain airworthy today, performing at air shows across Europe and America. The production's meticulous restoration work essentially saved these planes from extinction. Without the film's financial investment, most would have remained grounded museum pieces or been scrapped entirely. Aviation enthusiasts recognize specific aircraft from the film when they appear at events. Particular paint schemes and markings give them away. The film inadvertently became the world's most expensive aircraft preservation project. Collectors who purchased planes after production ended reaped enormous benefits from the restoration work, spending far less than original costs to maintain them. The movie's technical legacy extends beyond entertainment. It directly contributed to vintage aviation preservation movements. Today's thriving warbird community traces part of its lineage to this production's commitment to flying real aircraft rather than using models. The planes became the film's most enduring legacy, still performing aerial ballet 50 years later for audiences who never saw the movie. Battle of Britain attempted something audacious, recreating history with unprecedented authenticity while acknowledging the impossibility of truly capturing trauma through entertainment. It assembled the largest air force, destroyed irreplaceable artifacts, nearly took performers' lives, and almost bankrupted everyone involved. The result wasn't perfect, but it preserved aerial combat cinematography that remains unmatched by modern CGI, documented aircraft that might otherwise have vanished, and created a memorial to sacrifice that transcends its commercial failures. The film's troubled production mirrors the battle itself's survival through impossible odds, victory extracted from chaos, and a Pyrrhic triumph whose costs only become clear in retrospect. If you found these facts fascinating, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories that reveal the gap between cinema and reality. Because sometimes the real battle happens behind the camera, and those stories deserve to be remembered too.